This lesson is on trigonometry ratios. There are three types of trig ratios: sine, cosine, and tangent. Sine is represented by the letters sin, cosine is represented by the letters con, and tangent is represented by the letters tan. So the sine of an angle is in between -1 and 1, so it will be a decimal. Cosine is in between -1 and 1, so it will be either 1 or -1 or a decimal. Same thing with sine. Tangent can be any number. Calculating trig ratios. Method number 1, using a calculator. This can only be used this if you have the measure of the angle. Be sure the calculator is set to degree and round your answer to the nearest thousandths, 4 places after the decimal. Right, so using our TI-30XA, we have sine, cosine, and tangent. If you do not have this calculator and you have like an iPhone, if you turn it to the side, you will see that it still has sine, cosine, and tangent. And then if you have a Google calculator or a Google phone, you can turn it to the side and it still has sine, cosine, and tangent. And then if you still don't know, you can, if you don't have any of those, if you just Google search scientific calculator, this on Google will pop up and it has sine, cosine, and tangent. Alright, so for these we are just going to type in the degree 75 into our calculator, and then we are going to hit the cosine button or COS button, and it will give me 0.2588. Alright, now we're going to type in 150 and then hit the tan button, and we will get negative 0.5774. Alright, and then for this one, we'll type in 315 and then hit sine. And we will get negative 0.7071. So that's if we have the angle measure. But there are times that we do not have the angle measure. So calculating trig ratios. Method number 2, using formula. So can use this if you have a right triangle and no angle measure. Okay, so sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite over adjacent are legs. The hypotenuse is the side that is opposite of the right angle. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so adjacent means right next to. Tan is opposite over adjacent. Alright, so let's look at an example. We need to find the sine of E. So this is the angle that we're looking at. We need to find the cosine of E and tangent of E. Alright, so first thing that we should do is label our sides. So this is my right angle. So this has to be my hypotenuse. Alright. What the side that is adjacent or right next to this angle right here is this side and this side, but this side we already labeled our hypotenuse, so this one has to be adjacent, and then this side is opposite of the angle, so it has to be opposite. So now sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So we're going to take the opposite side, which is 8, So sine is going to be 8 over hypotenuse, which is 10, which 8 over 10 reduces to 4 over 5. We are going to leave these as fractions. So the sine of E equals 4 over 5. The cosine of E equals, so cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is right next to you, and that's 6 over 10, which reduces to 3 over 5. And then our tangent of E equals opposite over adjacent. So it's going to be 8 over 6. And 8 over 6 reduces to 4 over 3. Alright, so a nice way to be able to remember which one you use for which is something called SOHCAHTOA. So we have SOHCAHTOA. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. So if you remember SOHCAHTOA, this should be easy to find. So let's look at another example. So I'm going to write out my SOHCAHTOA up top so it reminds me of what I'm going to be using. So we are going to be finding sine, cosine, and tangent of A, so angle A right here, okay? Let's label our sides. So this is my right angle, so opposite of the right angle is always the hypotenuse. The other side that is next to my angle that I'm looking for is the adjacent. And then this is going to be the opposite. So I see a problem. I am missing a side. So I need to find that side first. So we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find that side. So I'm going to have A squared plus B squared, so B is going to be 24, squared equals C squared, which is 25. Alright. Then I'm going to find the missing side length. So we're still going to have A squared plus 24 squared is 576. 25 squared is 625. If I subtract 576 from both sides, I get A squared equals 49. And then if I square root both sides to get rid of the square, I'm going to get A equals 7. So this missing side here is going to be 7. So my opposite side will be 7. So now we should be able to find our sine, cosine, and tangent of A. So sine of A equals, so sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so my opposite is 7, and my hypotenuse is 25. And that cannot be reduced. Cosine of A, cosine, if we look at our SOHCAHTOA, is adjacent over hypotenuse, so our adjacent is 24, and our hypotenuse is 25. So 24 over 25 cannot reduce. And then tangent of A is opposite over adjacent. It's our TOA. So that's 7 over 24, which cannot reduce. So those are my answers. Alright, solving trigonometry or triangle problems. Use both the formula and the calculator. So determine how the sides relate to the given angle. Pick the trig function that uses those sides. fill in the information into the formula. Solve the equation using proportions. Okay. So triangle PQR, measure of angle P equals 40. P equals 5, find R and Q. Alright, so this should be PQR, PQR, and this angle here is 40. Well, let's change our color. It's kind of hard to see. Degrees. Okay, and it says that side P, which will be this side right here because it's opposite of the angle, is going to be 5. And then this is Q and this is R. The sides are opposites of the angles. Okay, so it wants us to find the missing sides. So we have the angle here, and we have this side here, which is 5. And this side here is going to be opposite. So if we look at our SOHCAHTOA, tangent uses opposite and sine uses opposite, so we can use either one of those to find our missing side. Alright, so if we do tan, I'm just going to do the tangent of 40, that's our degree, equals, and remember that tangent is opposite, which is 5, over adjacent, which is next to. So remember that this is going to be my hypotenuse. Adjacent and opposite. And then we don't know adjacent, so that's going to be my R. So this is now like a ratio. So I'm going to find the tangent of 40. So I'm typing 40 in my calculator and then hit tan. And I'm going to get 0.8391 equals 5 over R. Then we are going to cross multiply, and I'm going to get 0.8391 R equals, and then if we were to have a number on the bottom here, we would cross multiply and get 5 times 1, which is 5. Then we are going to divide by 0.8391. And I'm going to get R equals 6.0. So our R equals 6. So now that I have our R equaling 6 here, I have two sides, so I can either use Pythagorean theorem to find the third side, or I can do this again using this method here, but doing either, that should have been an H, sine or cosine. So I'm going to do the Pythagorean theorem now because it's easier. So I have two sides, I'm looking for my hypotenuse. So I'm going to have 5 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared, or q squared, because that side has a name, q. 5 squared is 25. 6 squared is 36. And we have q squared, which I don't know. 35, 25 plus 36 is 61 equals q squared. We will square root both sides to get rid of the square. And q is approximately 7.8. So now we have found q and r. All right, let's try another example. All right, so M, N, and O. So now let's label our sides. So those are our angles, M, N, and O. Our sides are going to be, opposite side of the angle M is going to be our side M. The opposite side of angle N is going to be side N. And the opposite side angle of side O is going to be side O. The measure of angle N here is 55 degrees. The M, side M here, equals 7. It wants us to find O and N. All right, so we're going to look at our SOHCAHTOA. All right, so I have this angle here. According to that angle, let's label our opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. So the hypotenuse is always the angle opposite of the right angle. So this is going to be H. Then next to is adjacent. And then opposite is opposite. All right, so I have this angle here, and I have the hypotenuse. So I can either use sine or cosine to solve this problem. I'm going to use cosine. So cosine of 55 degrees will equal, okay, so cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is our side O over our hypotenuse, which is 7. I'm going to make that look like closed, so I know that's not a 0. So no. So I'm going to now type in my calculator cosine 55, and I'm going to get 0.5736 equals O over 7. I can cross multiply, put that over 1. So 1 times O is O, and then 0.736 times 7 is 4. All right, so my side O here is going to be 4. So now I can use the Pythagorean theorem to find my other missing side. So I'm going to have N squared plus 4 squared equals 7 squared, because it's A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A and B don't matter, remember, only C has to be the hypotenuse. Alright, so N squared is I don't know, 4 squared is 16, and 7 squared is 49. I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides, and I get N squared equals 33. Then we are going to square root both sides, and N equals 5.7. So my sides are O is 4 and N is 5.7. Alright, let's look at this word problem. A parasailor has an 800-foot rope connected to a boat. The angle the rope makes with the water is 25 degrees. How high up in the air is the parasailor? Alright, so I'm going to draw a picture. It doesn't have to be beautiful. So I'm going to change my colors of my picture, make it black. Alright, so I have my parasailor. Woo! That's their paracel. Don't. Alright. And this is going to be my boat. And this is going to be my angle. Alright, so this is the imaginary triangle that I am creating. Alright, so it tells me that this is an 800-foot rope. So this is 800. It tells me that this angle right here from the rope to the water is 25 degrees. It wants us to find how high up, so that's right here, x, is the paraseller. Okay, so let's label our sides. Alright, so this is my right angle right here. So this side has to be my hypotenuse. This side would be adjacent, and this side is the opposite. So if we look at our SOHCAHTOA, so we have SOHCAHTOA. Alright. So we have the hypotenuse and we're looking for opposite. So sine has opposite and hypotenuse. So that is what we are going to be using. So we are going to do sine of 25, because that's my angle, equals opposite x over hypotenuse, 800. So sine, so we're going to type in 25, then hit sine in our calculator, or SIN, and we're going to get 0.4226 equals x over 800. Then we are going to cross multiply. 1 times x is x, and 0.4226 times 800 is 338.1 feet. So that paraseller is 338.1 feet up in the air. If you have any questions on this lesson, please feel free to contact me.